Friends, let me begin with something very simple, yet very powerful. The first habit that can calm your mind is this: start your day in silence, not on your phone. It sounds easy, but it is one of the hardest habits to build in today's world. Think about your morning for a moment. You open your eyes, and before your feet touch the ground, your hand reaches for the phone. Messages, notifications, missed calls, news alerts, social media updates. Within seconds, your mind is already pulled into 10 different directions. Someone's opinion, someone's problem, someone's success, someone's anger, and the day hasn't even started yet. Now ask yourself honestly, if the first thing you feed your mind in the morning is noise, how can you expect peace later in the day? The mind is like a clean whiteboard when you wake up. Whatever you write on it first becomes the theme of the day. When the first thing you write is stress, comparison, urgency, or negativity, your mind spends the rest of the day trying to manage that chaos. This is why many people say, "I don't know why I feel anxious," even when nothing major has happened. The anxiety didn't come from one big problem. It came from 1,000 small disturbances that entered the mind before breakfast. Silence in the morning is not about doing something spiritual or complicated. Silence simply means giving your mind a few moments to wake up gently instead of shocking it with information. When you wake up, your mind is most impressionable. Whatever you expose it to in those first few minutes settles deeply. That is why this habit is so powerful. Let me tell you something important: the world can wait. Your notifications can wait. Other people's expectations can wait. But your mental health cannot wait. Many people say, "I don't have time in the morning." But the truth is, we do have time. We just give it away to our phones. 5 minutes of silence costs nothing, yet it gives clarity, emotional balance, and inner strength. Even 1 minute makes a difference. When you wake up, instead of grabbing your phone, sit up and take a deep breath. Feel your body. Notice that you are alive. Notice the air entering your lungs. Notice the stillness of the early moments. In that silence, your mind begins to slow down. You become present instead of reactive. Silence also gives you space to observe your thoughts rather than drown in them. Thoughts will come, of course. The mind doesn't suddenly become empty. But in silence, you are no longer chasing every thought. You start watching them. And the moment you watch your thoughts, they lose some of their power over you. In the style often shared by speakers like Gaur Gopal, life is not about stopping thoughts. It is about choosing which thoughts deserve your energy. Morning silence gives you that choice. Another beautiful benefit of starting your day in silence is emotional stability. When you begin your day calmly, small problems don't disturb you as much. Traffic feels less frustrating. Delays feel manageable. People's words hurt less. Why? Because your mind is not already exhausted. Compare two mornings. In one, you wake up and scroll for 30 minutes. In the other, you wake up and sit quietly for 5 minutes. Same life, same challenges, same responsibilities, but a completely different inner experience. One creates restlessness, the other creates readiness. Silence also reconnects you with yourself. Throughout the day, we play many roles: employee, parent, child, friend, partner. In the morning silence, before the world demands anything from you, you get to meet yourself. You remember who you are beyond roles and responsibilities. That remembrance creates confidence and calm. Some people fear silence because they are afraid of their own thoughts. But silence is not your enemy. Avoiding silence doesn't remove inner noise, it only postpones it. When we don't face our mind calmly, it forces our attention later through stress, anger, or burnout. Morning silence is like preventive care for the mind. You don't need to meditate for hours. You don't need incense music or special posture. Just sit, breathe, and be aware. If thoughts come, let them come. If emotions arise, let them arise. You don't need to fix anything. Your only job is to be present. Over time, this habit changes your relationship with your mind. You stop waking up in reaction mode. You start waking up in response mode. And there is a big difference between the two. Reaction is unconscious. Response is conscious. A calm mind always responds better than a restless one. So tomorrow morning, try this experiment. Don't change your whole life. Just delay your phone. Give yourself silence first. Even if the rest of the day is noisy, let the beginning be peaceful. Because when the start is calm, the journey becomes lighter. Remember, peace is not something you find at the end of the day. Peace is something you practice at the beginning. Friends, the second habit that can truly calm your mind is something you carry with you all the time, yet rarely use consciously. Your breath. We breathe every moment, but most of us don't really breathe. We rush through it, we shorten it, we ignore it. And because the breath is ignored, the mind remains restless. Let me ask you something. When you are anxious, how is your breathing? Fast, shallow, irregular? And when you are calm, slow, deep, steady? This shows us a powerful truth. The breath and the mind are deeply connected. You may not always be able to control your thoughts, but you can always influence your breathing. And when the breath changes, the mind follows. Many people try to calm the mind by forcing positive thoughts. They say, don't think negative, be positive. But the mind doesn't listen to instructions when it is disturbed. It listens to signals. And breathing is the strongest signal you can give your nervous system. When life pressures you, the body thinks there is danger, even if the danger is just an email, an exam, a conversation, or a deadline. The body reacts as if it must fight or run. That is why your heart races, your chest feels tight, and your thoughts start jumping. Conscious breathing tells the body, I am safe right now. And once the body feels safe, the mind begins to settle. Speakers like Gaur Gopal often remind us that peace is not about escaping life. It is about learning how to stay centered within it. Conscious breathing is one of the simplest ways to return to your center, no matter where you are. The beauty of breathing is that it requires no preparation. You don't need silence around you. You don't need privacy. You can do it while walking, sitting in traffic, waiting for someone, or even during a difficult conversation. No one else needs to know. It becomes your personal anchor. Most of the time, when we feel overwhelmed, it is not because the situation is unbearable, but because the mind is running faster than reality. Conscious breathing slows everything down. When you take a slow breath in and an even slower breath out, your system begins to relax. The thoughts may still be there, but they lose their intensity. Try this simple awareness right now. Notice your breath without changing it. Just observe. Already something shifts. Observation creates distance. Distance creates calm. The moment you become aware of your breath, you step out of autopilot mode. One of the biggest reasons people feel mentally tired is because their breath is constantly shallow. Shallow breathing means less oxygen, and less oxygen means less clarity. Deep, conscious breathing refreshes not just the body, but the mind. It is like opening a window in a closed room. Another important aspect of conscious breathing is emotional regulation. When emotions rise, anger, fear, frustration, they show up first in the breath. The breath becomes sharp or held. If you learn to soften your breathing in those moments, you prevent the emotion from controlling your actions. You don't suppress the emotion, you simply don't let it explode. Many regrets in life come from moments when emotions took over and awareness disappeared. Conscious breathing brings awareness back. It gives you a pause, and in that pause lies wisdom. People often say, I don't have time to calm down. But calming down doesn't take time, it takes attention. 3 slow breaths taken consciously can change the direction of your inner state. It is not about duration, it is about depth. Breathing also helps you stay in the present moment. Anxiety lives in the future. Regret lives in the past. The breath lives only in the present. When you bring your attention to your breath, you automatically return to now. And in the present moment, most of our fears disappear. Over time, conscious breathing becomes a habit. You begin to notice when your breath is disturbed, and you gently correct it. Just like tuning a musical instrument, you tune your inner state. Life may still play loud music around you, but you remain in harmony within. There is also humility in breathing consciously. It reminds us that life is fragile and precious. Each breath is a gift. When you remember this, you stop taking small things too seriously. You become softer, more patient, more understanding with yourself and with others. This habit does not promise a life without problems, but it gives you something more valuable, a calm space within from where you can face any problem with clarity. A restless mind reacts, a calm mind responds. So whenever you feel overwhelmed, don't ask your mind to relax. Start with your breath, slow it down, deepen it, respect it. Because the fastest way to calm a racing mind is not through thinking. It is through breathing. Peace does not always come from changing your circumstances. Sometimes it comes from changing the way you breathe through them. Friends, the third habit that can truly calm your mind is this simple practice. Do one thing at a time. It sounds almost too basic, yet in today's world, it has become a rare skill. We often pride ourselves on multitasking, but what we don't realize is that multitasking is not a sign of intelligence or efficiency. It is one of the biggest reasons our minds feel constantly tired and restless. Let me ask you something honestly. How often are you eating while scrolling, listening while thinking of a reply, working while worrying about something else? Your body may be in one place, but your mind is jumping between many. And when the mind keeps jumping, it never truly rests. We live with the illusion that doing many things at once will save time. In reality, it divides attention. Every time you switch from one task to another, the mind pays a price. That price is mental fatigue. Over time, this constant switching creates stress, impatience, and a sense of being overwhelmed, even when the workload is manageable. In calm wisdom shared by speakers like Gaur Gopal, The quality of our life depends on the quality of our attention. Where attention goes, energy flows. When attention is scattered, energy is scattered. And when energy is scattered, peace disappears. Doing one thing at a time is not about slowing down your life. It is about being fully present in whatever you are doing. When you are present, the mind stops racing ahead. It stops replaying the past. It rests in the now. And the present moment is the only place where calm exists. Think about a simple activity like drinking tea. Many of us drink tea while checking messages or thinking about work. But if you drink tea consciously, feeling the warmth, tasting the flavor, noticing the aroma, something beautiful happens. The mind naturally settles. Why? Because it is not being pulled in multiple directions. This habit also teaches patience. When you do one thing at a time, you accept that everything has its own pace. You stop rushing through life. You start respecting the rhythm of tasks instead of forcing speed. And surprisingly, this often makes you more effective, not less. One of the biggest causes of mental stress is unfinished attention. You may finish tasks physically, but mentally you are still half there and half somewhere else. This creates inner tension. Single tasking completes not just the action, but the mental loop associated with it. The mind feels clean and light afterward. People often complain, "My mind never stops." But the mind is not the problem, the way we use it is. When we constantly overload it with multiple demands, it reacts by becoming noisy. Doing one thing at a time reduces that noise naturally. There is also emotional peace in single tasking. When you listen to someone fully, without checking your phone or thinking of your response, they feel valued. And when relationships feel meaningful, the mind feels calmer. Many conflicts arise not because of lack of love, but because of lack of presence. When you work on one task with full attention, you enter a state of flow. In that state, time feels lighter, effort feels smoother, and stress reduces. This is not magic. It is simply the mind doing what it does best: focusing. Single tasking also helps you handle mistakes better. When you are present, you notice errors early. You correct them calmly instead of panicking later. This reduces anxiety and self-criticism. Some people fear that if they slow down, they will fall behind. But look closely. Most exhaustion doesn't come from too much work. It comes from fragmented work. A focused hour often produces better results than 3 distracted hours. This habit requires practice. The mind will wander. That is natural. When it does, gently bring it back. No frustration, no judgment. Every return to the present strengthens mental discipline and calm. Even in difficult situations, doing one thing at a time helps. If you are facing a problem, focus on the next small step, not the entire mountain. The mind panics when it tries to carry everything at once. It relaxes when it carries one step at a time. There is humility in this habit. It reminds us that we are human, not machines. We are designed for depth, not constant switching. When we honor that design, the mind thanks us with peace. Over time, this practice changes how you experience life. Meals become more enjoyable, conversations become deeper, work becomes more meaningful, and most importantly, the mind becomes quieter. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, don't try to do more. Try to do less, but with full presence. Because a calm mind is not built by doing everything at once. It is built by giving your full attention to what truly matters. one moment at a time. Friends, the fourth habit that can deeply calm your mind is learning to limit mental clutter. Not every thought deserves your attention, and not every thought deserves your belief. This may sound surprising because many of us assume that every thought that appears in our mind must be important. But the truth is, the mind produces thoughts the way the lungs produce breath, continuously. If we treat every thought as urgent, the mind becomes exhausted. Let me ask you something honestly. Just because a thought appears in your mind, does it mean it is true? Does it mean it is useful? Does it mean it needs immediate action? Most of the time, the answer is no. Yet we give our energy to every thought as if it were a command. Mental clutter is created when the mind keeps replaying the same worries, comparisons, regrets, and imaginary scenarios. The problem is not that these thoughts exist. The problem is that we keep entertaining them. We invite them in, offer them tea, and allow them to stay all day. No wonder the mind feels crowded. As often shared in the gentle wisdom of speakers like Gaur Gopal, peace does not come from having fewer thoughts. It comes from having less attachment to thoughts. The mind can think, but you don't have to follow every thought like a loyal servant. One of the biggest causes of mental clutter is overthinking. Overthinking is simply thinking without direction. It is the mind running in circles, searching for certainty where none exists. The mind asks, what if, again and again, but never reaches a conclusion. This drains emotional energy and creates anxiety. Limiting mental clutter does not mean suppressing thoughts or forcing positivity. Suppression only pushes thoughts deeper, where they come back stronger. Instead, this habit is about discerning which thoughts are worth engaging with and which ones are not. Imagine your mind as a room. If you allow everyone to walk in freely, it becomes noisy and chaotic. But if you become selective about who enters, the room stays peaceful. Thoughts are the same. Some thoughts are helpful guests, others are unnecessary visitors. A simple practice is to pause and ask yourself, is this thought helping me right now? If the thought leads to clarity, learning, or action, it is useful. If it only leads to worry, fear, or self-criticism, it is clutter. You don't need to fight it. You simply don't need to give it your attention. Attention is power. Whatever you focus on grows stronger. When you repeatedly focus on negative or fearful thoughts, they become louder. When you stop feeding them, they slowly lose strength. The mind learns from your behavior. If you stop reacting to unnecessary thoughts, the mind produces fewer of them over time. Another source of mental clutter is comparison. We compare our behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. This creates dissatisfaction and restlessness. The mind becomes busy asking, why not me? Or am I good enough? These thoughts rarely improve your life, yet they consume so much space. Limiting mental clutter also means being careful about what you consume mentally. Constant exposure to news, opinions, and negativity fills the mind with borrowed worries. Problems that are not yours start living rent free in your head. Awareness of consumption is an act of self-respect. When the mind is cluttered, even small tasks feel heavy. When the mind is clear, even difficult tasks feel manageable. This shows us that peace is not about external conditions, it is about internal space. One powerful way to clear mental clutter is writing. When thoughts keep looping, put them on paper. The moment you externalize them, the mind feels lighter. Writing gives thoughts a place to go instead of endlessly circling inside. Another important aspect is learning to let go. Not every problem needs to be solved immediately. Some things need time. When you accept this, the mind relaxes. Clinging to control creates clutter, surrender creates space. Mental clutter also reduces self-compassion. When the mind is crowded, we become harsh with ourselves. We judge our past, criticize our mistakes, and worry about our future. Clearing mental clutter allows kindness to return toward yourself and others. This habit takes patience. The mind will wander back to old patterns. When it does, gently bring it back. No frustration, no self-blame. Calm awareness is more powerful than force. Over time, limiting mental clutter changes your inner environment. You start responding instead of reacting. You gain clarity. You feel less overwhelmed. And most importantly, you experience silence not as emptiness, but as peace. Remember, your mind is a tool, not a master. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. When you stop giving importance to every passing thought, the mind learns to rest, and in that rest, calm naturally arises. Friends, the fifth habit that brings deep calm to the mind is learning to create a daily pause. Even a few minutes of stillness can reset your inner world, but only if you give yourself permission to stop. In a culture that celebrates constant movement, pausing can feel uncomfortable, even unproductive. Yet the truth is, without pauses, the mind slowly loses balance. Think about your day. From the moment you wake up, there is momentum. One task leads to another. One thought triggers the next. Even when you sit, your mind keeps running. The body may stop, but the mind rarely does. Over time, this non-stop mental motion creates fatigue that no amount of sleep can fix. A daily pause is not about escaping responsibilities. It is about interrupting the noise. Just like a machine overheats without rest, the mind overheats without pauses. When we don't pause intentionally, life forces us to pause through burnout, illness, or emotional breakdown. A conscious pause is an act of wisdom. Often, we believe that peace requires a long vacation or a perfect environment. But calm is not about distance from life. It is about space within life. This is why teachers like Gaur Gopal does remind us that peace is not found by running away from the world, but by learning how to stand still within it. A daily pause can be as short as 5 minutes. What matters is not the length, but the quality. During this pause, you are not fixing problems, planning, or consuming information. You are simply being. And for many people, this is the hardest thing to do. At first, when you pause, the mind may become louder. Thoughts rush in. Restlessness appears. This is normal. It doesn't mean the pause is failing. It means you are finally noticing how busy the mind already was. Most of the time, we distract ourselves so we don't have to face this inner noise. The pause gently brings it into awareness. When you sit quietly, even for a few minutes, something subtle begins to happen. The breath slows, the body softens, the nervous system shifts out of survival mode. The mind starts letting go of urgency. You may not feel instant peace, but you feel less pressure, and that is the beginning of calm. A daily pause also gives perspective. When you are constantly moving, every problem feels big. When you pause, you step back. From that space, you realize that many things you were worried about are not as heavy as they seemed. The pause doesn't remove problems, it changes how you see them. One of the biggest benefits of pausing is emotional clarity. When emotions are suppressed, they build up. When emotions are expressed impulsively, they create damage. The pause creates a third option: awareness. You notice what you are feeling without reacting. This allows emotions to pass naturally instead of controlling you. People often say, "I'll pause when life slows down," but life doesn't slow down on its own. It is we who must slow down within life. Waiting for the perfect moment to pause is like waiting for the ocean to become still before learning to swim. The pause can happen anywhere: sitting quietly before a meal, closing your eyes between tasks, taking a few conscious breaths before responding to someone. These small pauses act like mental reset buttons. They prevent stress from accumulating. There is also humility in pausing. It reminds us that we are not machines designed to run endlessly. We are human beings who need moments of stillness to reconnect with ourselves. When we ignore this need, the mind rebels. A daily pause strengthens self-awareness. You begin to notice patterns. What triggers you? What drains you? What nourishes you? With awareness comes choice. And with choice comes freedom. A calm mind is not a mind without challenges. It is a mind that knows when to stop, breathe, and reset. Initially, the pause may feel awkward. You may feel guilty for doing nothing, but remember, stillness is not nothing. It is restoration. It is preparation. Just as silence between musical notes creates melody, pauses in life create harmony. Over time, this habit changes your relationship with time. You stop feeling constantly rushed. You start feeling grounded. Even busy days feel lighter because you are not carrying accumulated tension. So give yourself this gift every day. Not because you have extra time, but because your mind deserves care. A few minutes of pause can save hours of stress. In those quiet moments, you don't lose momentum, you regain direction. Remember, calm is not something you add to life. Calm is something that emerges when you allow yourself to pause and simply be present. Friends, the sixth habit that deeply calms the mind is learning to accept what you can't control. This sounds simple, but it is one of the most difficult lessons in life. Much of our mental unrest does not come from what is happening, but from our resistance to what is happening. We argue with reality in our mind, and that inner argument creates exhaustion. Let me ask you something honestly. How much of your stress comes from things that are actually in your control, and how much comes from things that are not? Other people's behavior, past mistakes, the future, outcomes, opinions, situations that didn't go as planned. We spend an enormous amount of mental energy trying to change things that are already fixed or not in our hands. Acceptance is often misunderstood. People think acceptance means weakness, giving up, or becoming passive. It does not. Acceptance simply means seeing reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. The moment you stop fighting reality, your mind releases a huge burden. As often shared in the wisdom of speakers like Gaur Gopal, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain comes from life. Suffering comes from resistance. When we resist what we cannot control, we suffer twice, once from the situation and once from our thoughts about it. Think about the past. No matter how much you replay it, analyze it, or regret it, you cannot change it. Yet the mind keeps going back, saying, "If only I had." This habit does not improve the present, it only steals peace from it. Acceptance of the past does not mean approving of it. It means recognizing that it is over and your energy is better used now. The same applies to the future. The mind loves to predict worst case scenarios. What if it goes wrong? What if I fail? What if they don't understand? Most of these fears never happen, but the stress is real. Accepting that the future is uncertain frees you from the illusion of control. You prepare, you do your best, and then you let go. One of the hardest things to accept is other people. We want them to think like us, behave like us, understand us, and meet our expectations. When they don't, we feel hurt or angry. But trying to control others is one of the fastest ways to lose inner peace. The moment you accept that people act from their own conditioning, your mind softens. Acceptance does not mean you stop setting boundaries. It means you stop expecting everyone to be exactly how you want them to be. You respond wisely instead of reacting emotionally. Another area where acceptance brings calm is outcomes. We often attach our peace to results. If things go our way, we are happy. If they don't, we are disturbed. This makes peace fragile. When you focus on effort instead of outcome, your mind becomes stable. You learn to respect what you can do and release what you cannot control. Acceptance also reduces self-blame. Many people carry guilt for things they didn't know, couldn't predict, or couldn't handle at the time. Acceptance brings compassion toward yourself. You recognize that you did the best you could with the awareness you had then. This understanding is deeply healing. The mind resists acceptance because it thinks resistance equals control. But resistance gives the mind something to fight against, and that fight never ends. Acceptance ends the inner battle. When the battle ends, energy returns. This habit does not develop overnight. The mind is conditioned to control, fix, and predict. When you start practicing acceptance, the mind may protest. It may say, if I accept this, I'll become careless. But slowly, you realize the opposite is true. Acceptance brings clarity. Clarity leads to better action. There is great calm in saying, this is what it is right now. That sentence doesn't trap you, it grounds you. From a grounded place, you make wiser decisions. A restless mind makes desperate choices. A calm mind makes thoughtful ones. Acceptance also teaches trust in life, in timing, and in your ability to handle whatever comes. When you stop trying to control everything, you discover an inner strength that was always there. So whenever you feel mentally disturbed, ask yourself one simple question: is this within my control? If the answer is yes, act calmly. If the answer is no, let go gently. Peace begins where unnecessary control ends. Remember, life becomes lighter not when everything goes your way, but when you stop fighting what cannot be changed. Acceptance does not weaken you, it frees you. Friends, the seventh habit that plays a powerful role in calming the mind is learning to be mindful of what you consume. And when I say consumption, I don't mean only food. I mean everything you allow into your life, what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, what you discuss, and even the kind of environments and people you spend time with. The mind is constantly consuming, and whatever it consumes quietly shapes your inner world. Most of us are very careful about what we eat for our physical health. We check ingredients, calories, freshness. But when it comes to mental consumption, We allow anything and everything. News filled with fear, conversations filled with complaints, social media filled with comparison, entertainment filled with aggression, and then we wonder why the mind feels restless. The mind works on a very simple principle: you become what you repeatedly consume. Just as unhealthy food makes the body weak, unhealthy mental input makes the mind disturbed, and the effect is often slow, which is why we don't notice it immediately. As shared in the gentle teachings of speakers like Gaur Gopal, the mind is like soil. Whatever seeds you plant in it will eventually grow. You may not see results the next day, but over time, the harvest is inevitable. Let's talk about information first. We live in an age of information overload. From the moment we wake up, we are flooded with updates, opinions, and breaking news. Much of this information is negative or alarming because negativity grabs attention faster. When the mind is exposed to constant fear-based information, it begins to see the world as unsafe, even when it isn't. Being mindful does not mean ignoring reality. It means choosing how much exposure is healthy. You can stay informed without being overwhelmed. When you limit unnecessary news consumption, you'll notice the mind becoming lighter and more focused. Now think about entertainment. What you watch before sleep often decides the quality of your rest. Violent, loud, or emotionally heavy content agitates the mind. Calm, meaningful, or light content soothes it. Many people say, it's just a show, but the mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagined stress. It absorbs emotions, not logic. Conversations are another form of consumption. Gossip, complaining, and constant negativity drain mental energy. You may not even be involved in the problem, but just listening to it fills your mind with heaviness. Being mindful means knowing when to listen with compassion and when to protect your mental space. This also applies to social media. Endless scrolling exposes you to comparison, unrealistic standards, and filtered realities. Even if you don't consciously feel affected, the mind starts questioning its own worth. Mindful consumption means asking, is this nourishing me or draining me? Food also affects the mind more than we realize. Heavy, processed, or overeaten food makes the body sluggish, and a sluggish body creates a dull mind. Eating with awareness, moderation, and gratitude supports emotional balance. The goal is not perfection, but awareness. Another subtle form of consumption is self-talk. The way you speak to yourself throughout the day matters. Harsh inner dialogue fills the mind with pressure and self-doubt. Gentle, encouraging inner talk creates calm. You are always listening to yourself, even when no one else is. Mindful consumption also means being selective about advice and opinions. Too many voices create confusion. Not every opinion deserves space in your mind. Wisdom grows in silence, not in noise. At first, setting boundaries around consumption may feel uncomfortable. You may feel disconnected or out of the loop. But soon, you realize that peace is more valuable than constant stimulation. The mind doesn't need more input, it needs better input. Over time, when you consume mindfully, something beautiful happens. The mind becomes clearer. Emotions become steadier. You react less and respond more. You feel grounded instead of scattered. This habit is not about cutting yourself off from the world. It is about engaging with the world consciously. You don't eat junk all day and expect good health. Similarly, you cannot consume mental junk all day and expect peace. So ask yourself regularly, what am I feeding my mind today? Fear or faith? Comparison or contentment? Noise or clarity? Awareness of consumption is awareness of self-care. Remember, calm is not created only by what you do, but also by what you choose not to consume. When you respect your mind enough to feed it wisely, it naturally becomes a place of peace.